Good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining this webinar from around the world. I'd like to give you a warm welcome to a Aspirex-sponsored ITIL4 webinar that focuses on growth, leadership, and innovation. I'm going to be the moderator for this session. My name is Jason Elvis, and the expert speaker today is going to be Mr. Ian MacDonald. Next slide, please. Before we go into the meat of the presentation, let's take a little bit of an overview about your service provider today. Aspirex is a UK-based accredited training provider that specialises in ITIL, ITIL, however you want to call it, Prince 2 and Agile. It provides full instructor-led sessions that you can obtain with a flexible scheduling through online anywhere in the world. Next slide, please. And let's take a little look at your expert speaker today. The tutor for this ITIL4 session is going to be an expert in the field with multiple awards and is a regular contributor in the industry. He's got more than 40 years of experience and has worked across Europe, providing high-performance outcomes to the teams he's involved with. Next slide, please. Okay. Let's take a little look at what you're in store for today with this webinar. You will be introduced the fundamentals of IT and IT service management. Then we will be introducing to you ITIL and the 4th edition and what's special about it. Afterwards, we will show you how ITIL integrates with ITISM and the path which you can take to start your journey in ITIL4, regardless of your current employment situation. And if you wait until the end, you'll be able to take part in a Q&A session and be in store for maybe some possible coupon codes for the courses provided and get you additional information about future webinars which we might host. And with that, I'd like to hand over the presentation to our expert speaker today, Mr. Ian MacDonald.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So I guess firstly, as Jason said, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name's Ian MacDonald, so here to guide you through the next 45 minutes or so on the matter of ITIL4. So the purpose of this webinar, well, I think Jason sort of went through the structure, so the objectives pretty much match that. I guess in summary, I'd probably pull out 3 key points. Firstly, what is this thing called ITIL? If you've not heard of it, or you've sort of heard of it in the background but not quite sure what this thing is, what is it and why is it relevant today? Secondly, how is ITIL relevant to you and your career? So let's look at it also from an individual perspective, not just the organisational perspective. And third, how can you get support on your ITIL journey should you wish to progress that as part of your sort of professional developments. Okay, and at the end of it, as it says there, we should have a clear understanding of how ITIL4 can help you with your personal development, and also, of course, how your skills and knowledge over time contribute better to your organisation's success. So some basics. You know, what is IT? Well, I think the clue is probably in the name. Yeah, it's about information technology. But ITIL and I guess IT, as you'll see, it's really about how technology ultimately enables business value and growth. So yes, we can talk about the technical components, the bits and the bytes, the networks, etc., etc. But fundamentally, you know, IT is about supporting and enabling those business services that support the business and their customers be successful. And this focus on sort of business value resonates quite strongly throughout ITIL4, and that's particularly relevant now as we're sort of in the era of the digital world, digital technology. Digital now allows organizations different and better ways of doing business. I often use examples such as Uber, you know, the biggest taxi company in the world, but doesn't actually own any taxis. You know, Just Eat, one of the biggest fast food companies in the world, but they don't actually make pizzas or cook burgers. And Airbnb, you know, one of the biggest property management companies in the world, that don't actually own any property. I mean, extreme but great examples of how digital technology and IT have enabled different ways for organizations to do business, to create value and create value for their customers. Okay, so information technology, it's about the technology, but fundamentally how we use that technology to drive business value. And one of the questions we often get is, what is IT service management? Because IT service management and ITIL are sort of welded at the hip. So are they the same thing? Are they different? Yes, probably. Well, let's just quickly go through what we mean by IT service management. Before we sort of answer that specifically, let's just think about our IT organizations. So the organizations you work for as IT service providers, as ITIL would call them, you provide a range of IT services to your business customers. And those services need to be maintained and enhanced, improved over time. You as practitioners, IT practitioners in that IT organization, many of you will have roles and contribution in how those services are maintained and supported. So IT services need therefore to be maintained, they need to be managed. You as IT practitioners need capabilities to be able to do that. So IT service management really is about what IT organizations need to do to maintain and manage services. So to ensure they support the business, achieve their goals. So being available, being reliable, having the right performance capacity, being, enhanced and improved as appropriate. And also as the business reliance on IT services and the technology that underpins them becomes even more greater, then making sure those services are delivered consistently in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. Whether it's from cradle to grave, those services need to be managed. And, IT service management is that sort of generic term around what IT organizations need to do to achieve that. So this is where ITIL comes in, the Information Technology Infrastructure Library. I call it ITIL, some people call it ITIL, doesn't really matter, but Information Technology Infrastructure Library, ITIL, is very much the reference point, for how to actually go about managing, maintaining and doing that IT service management piece. Okay, so ITIL is that industry best practice on how best to go about and manage IT services. So IT service management is what you need to do. ITIL gives you that best practice guidance on how best to actually do it. Okay, so not industry best practice in the UK or Europe, but actually globally. Okay, so ITIL is an approach recognized worldwide. Okay, and if you're looking at some of its unique selling points, it's flexibility. So ITIL doesn't say you have to do everything we say. It says, look at what you do, ask the question, are there things you could do differently or better where it would make sense? What does ITIL say? So it has this sort of mantra of adopt and adapt, where you see ITIL making a positive difference. It's scalable. So you don't need to eat the elephant. You don't have to do everything that ITIL says. Start small and improve, maybe gradually, incrementally. And the other thing is, of course, IT, lots of different industry sectors rely on IT, whether it's retail, whether it's finance and insurance, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's universities, etc. So ITIL is applicable to any organization in any industry sector, big or small. It's technology sort of agnostic. So, if your server estate is HP or IBM, it doesn't matter. Whatever technologies you use, how best to manage those technologies to the best effect. That's what ITIL provides. And as I said at the beginning, you might have heard of this thing called ITIL, or it's sort of something you've not come across yet. Let's look at quickly a very brief sort of potted history. The first key point to get across is ITIL is not a sort of a, let's say, a management fad, here today, gone tomorrow. Yeah, it's been around since the end of the 80s. So I think 1988, 89 was when the first ITIL sort of guidance was first published. Okay, so for many of you on the call, ITIL is probably older than you. Yeah. So I've been in IT 40 years, so pretty much much of that journey has been alongside ITIL. Okay, so it's been around a long time, so it's here to stay. All right. ITIL, of course, has to change. So what was best practice in 1989 is probably not appropriate and applicable today. So typically, ITIL changes when there's a significant change in the way technology is managed, how the business use technology. And we sort of have this sort of versionized approach. So we talk about ITIL4, and anything before it is usually versionized as ITIL1, ITIL2, or ITIL3. So why did ITIL first get launched way back in 1988, 89? Well, that was a time of big change to IT. Prior to that, traditionally, you had limited choice in technology. So usually it was a mainframe, probably IBM or ICL. And if you wanted to run applications, you couldn't buy packages, you had to write them yourself. Okay, and these were big machines in what we today would call data centers. And managing that environment was relatively straightforward. You could get your arms around it because it was in one place, okay? And it was, of a scale, that was easy to sort of manage. And then we started to see the introduction of the PC and later the sort of the small server technologies. We started to see the creation of application packages that a business could now buy and install. They didn't have to have applications written for them specifically. And that started to challenge that sort of big mainframe world, that data center only environment. We start to see technology creep outside of the data center. And at that point, there was recognition that we perhaps need to have some guidance on how best to manage this new emerging technology. Okay. And in its very early days, ITIL, as the name implied, infrastructure library, was a set of books. Yeah. And so there were books produced on various aspects of how to manage this new sort of distributed environment. Interestingly, the driver for ITIL, didn't come from one of the big tech companies, didn't come from one of the big sort of global organizations that were out there at the time. It came actually from the UK government. Okay, so the actual sponsor for the creation of this thing we now call ITIL was the UK government, because it recognized across government there were lots and lots of different departments that used IT, and therefore this change of direction to this potentially more distributed environment, on a scale would give them problems if they didn't have a standard way of doing things. Okay, and that served us well. And then in the late sort of 90s, we started to have this thing called the World Wide Web. And that opened up the opportunity for organizations to sell services, to deliver services, on a 24/7 basis, but through the internet, what we often call the anytime, any place, anywhere sort of IT. You could log on to your sort of online banking, in a hotel, anywhere that had access to the internet, you could transact and do business. You no longer needed to ring a contact center. You no longer needed to visit a branch, as an example. And so that was, again, a big change in how IT services had been previously being delivered. Yeah, this 24/7, 365 aspect meant we probably needed to look through a different lens now on how best we manage services in that particular world. And then in 2007, we started to see this increasing dependency and reliance on IT. And the business wanted to make sure they got a good value for money, but also that ITIL looked at not just managing services on a day-to-day basis, but actually understood them from a strategic perspective, right from the very beginning. That cradle to grave term that I often use, ITIL started to look not just at delivering services day to day, but looking at services, why they're needed, why they're important, what needs to be done to manage and maintain them, even at the point of where we might need to decommission. So it had that more life cycle approach, cradle to grave, as I call it. And that served us well, of course, until we started to hit around 2018, 2019, this sudden growth and exploitation of what we now call the digital technologies. As we saw companies like Uber and Airbnb, etc., change their business models to exploit digital technology. And again, a world which is now starting to be very different in terms of the pace of change, the need to do things quickly, and also starting to recognize that whilst the good old aspects of availability, reliability, performance, capacity are still important, we still need to manage incidents, we still need to introduce and control change, that things like the customer experience and the user experience of those services is just as important. In some cases can be maybe a differentiator, in a competitive marketplace. So ITIL4 was written very much for this new digital age. Okay, so that's a brief history of why ITIL came about and how it's evolved to today, where we refer to ITIL as ITIL4. That's the latest reference point, the latest, if you like, version of ITIL. Okay, so ITIL4, what is ITIL? It gives, as we said before, guidance, best practice for the digital age. It ensures that ITIL is focused on making sure we deliver the best possible value to the business, by working closely together to understand what's important to the business, how IT can support the business better. We look to create better and enhanced value from the services we provide. And that's a common theme. If you were looking backwards at previous versions of ITIL, there was very much a focus on service quality, meeting the SLA. That's still important, but within ITIL4, it shifts the dial to say, but also, what is the value to the business, to the customers that use your IT services? So anything and everything we do should focus on how we can add and enhance that value. Okay, so quite a key emphasis of ITIL4. Introduces a service value system, which is really just the structure, but significantly, ITIL4 now applies itself to the whole IT organization. Its scope is IT organization wide, unlike previous versions of ITIL, which were often focused at what I call the service team. So the service desk, the service operations, service management, that sort of front end of the IT organization, making sure services are delivered, day to day consistently. ITIL4 now says, well, actually, no, we need to work in a common, consistent way across the whole of the IT organization. So now it doesn't matter what you do, whatever your role is, ITIL4 is applicable to you. And some of the things that are really important in ITIL4 is this focus on speed, responsiveness, working more closely together, this collaboration. Let's deliver better solutions. Let's get better buy-in by bringing people together, those that are going to be affected by change, those that are going to do the change, maybe those that have been there, seen it and done it before. Let's work together, and focus on how we can deliver things that add value and focus on always looking to improve, never getting complacent. And also what's quite important in ITIL4 is it recognizes that there are other IT best practices that are out there that many organizations do. They run alongside ITIL. If you were an application developer, you're probably more familiar with Agile and DevOps than maybe you are with ITIL. If you're into process management, you're probably more familiar maybe with Lean than you are with ITIL. Well, ITIL4 now embraces those principles. So that's important because being organization wide, it now means ITIL is more sort of, if you like, complementary and works, with other teams that may have other ways of working. ITIL is complementary to that. Okay. So why is it important? Well, hopefully the key messages are coming through. So ensures IT understands, the direction and strategy of the business it supports. So the strategic alignment. So ITIL doesn't work in isolation now. It needs to understand what's important to the business and to their customers. What direction is the business taking? How can IT best support that? Okay, so moving the relationship from maybe being arm's length, we deliver services, here's an SLA, and unless we fail the SLA, that's pretty much the deal, to always wanting to work together, always trying to understand how can IT add more value? What can we do, that gives more value to you as a business? What are the things that we do that maybe the business aren't aware of, that we can share? So that strategic alignment is very, very key. In terms of streamlined delivery, well, proven ways of working, best practice says, don't reinvent the wheel. These are proven ways of working. Do the right things the right way consistently. And cost optimization, well, focusing on ensuring that the services you provide, remain affordable. There's no point having fantastic IT services if no one can afford them. So services have to be affordable. They have to be efficient. They have to be effective. So again, ITIL puts a big emphasis on efficiency and effectiveness, on that cost lens. And this thing around value, understand the business, their customers, focus on what's really important to them, and understand how IT can do different things, work in different ways to maybe add more value. To be faster, better, and cheaper. By that continued focus on understanding what's important and how we can change the way we work to deliver those better, improved outcomes. So how does service management, ITSM and ITIL4 work together? Well, I think we've already covered that in principle, which is, of course, ITSM provides that sort of discipline of what, IT needs to do, to manage services. So we need to be able to, manage change. We need to be able to deal with incidents when things fail and break. We need to be able to support our users when they need requests for help and support. And of course, ITIL is the guidance, that says, and this is how best to go about and do that. So how to manage incidents, how to manage change, how to manage service requests, etc., etc. And by bringing those two things together, then, the focus is on that value from the services we provide. So that management focus, that best practice approach on how to do things, hopefully combine to deliver, great value for money services that are delivered consistently to enable the business to be successful. Okay, so we've talked quite a bit really about sort of ITIL, ITIL4 and its relevance to the organization and to their business customers. Let's actually bring it down to sort of a what's in it for you sort of perspective. So now let's look at ITIL through that particular lens. So globally recognized, we said ITIL is a global thing now, worldwide recognized. So if you do the training, if you gain the qualifications, the certifications for the different exams, then those qualifications are recognized globally. Okay, so if you were looking at some point in the future maybe to emigrate to a different country and you needed an IT job, there's a fair chance that having ITIL qualifications recognized worldwide, would give you a good chance of, getting an interview, getting on that shortlist, and hopefully getting a job, which might be a prerequisite to being actually allowed to, work in a different country. So that's a real good selling point. Speaks the language managers expect. So, if you start going through the ITIL way of doing things, one of the things ITIL brings to the party is a common lexicon. Globally sort of understood. We speak the same language, when we talk IT and we talk ITIL. And the things that ITIL covers are the things that actually, organizations want to recruit and bring in expertise. Okay, so you're talking the same language. That's really great. And of course, ITIL qualifications, in a way, view them as the differentiation between you and maybe others, yeah, who don't have those qualifications. So again, opportunity to, maybe get a new role in an organization, progress, through that organization, progress your career through the use of ITIL gained certification qualifications. Now, I'm not going to labour this one because the main point of sort of ITIL is you need to get that entry point, ITIL Foundation. So ITIL Foundation is the first training course. If you've not come across ITIL, you want to know more about ITIL, then ITIL Foundation is that sort of entry point into the broader, wider qualification scheme. Okay. Once you've got that qualification, then over time, as maybe your role develops, as your experience starts to increase, there may be other qualifications that might be appropriate as part, again, that sort of continued professional development. The three main sort of, if you like, designations are practice manager, managing professional, strategic leader. So practice manager, a whole set of courses around the ITIL practices, incident management, problem management, change enablement, yeah, service level management. Yeah, so if you're a practitioner that execute within a role that's involved in some of these, common practices, then there are courses that allow you to undertake a more in-depth understanding of how those processes, practices, ways of working should be, and gain qualifications. If you're looking to, or maybe you're a team leader or you've got a lead role, looking slightly wider than just the day-to-day, then managing professional is very much focused on better ways of working, and again bringing out this this closer focus on how IT supports the business be successful, how what your team does now and maybe in the future can enhance that value. So managing professional for those that may be moving into a more team leader management, maybe some sort of lead role within your organization. And of course, strategic leader is, well, for those that are in a position where maybe they're not looking necessarily at today, but looking at the future. So what is the direction of technology? What is the direction of the business? How can we ensure the business and IT work closely together to give us that strategic direction that ensures IT is in line with what the business need to do to be more successful? Okay, so those are the sort of three, I call them designations or three pillars, if you like, but you need to do ITIL Foundation before you can get to that point. But I guess the key message is, of course, it brings out the opportunity for ITIL to be viewed not as a destination, i.e. let's do foundation, but definitely a journey. And ultimately, if you pass all the certificates across those three designations, and you're deemed to be a master, yeah, you know everything there is about ITIL, and you get that designation of ITIL Master. So a long way to go, and that might seem a long way ahead for you where you are now, but that's within, I guess, the grasp once you start that ITIL journey. Okay, so let's now look at perhaps sort of ITIL from a number of different sort of lenses regarding roles. As we said, one of the big differences in ITIL4, it's organizational wide, so should apply to and be relevant for all sorts of roles across the IT organization. So let's have a quick sort of look at some of those benefits. So just looking at sort of at a top level, benefits for ITIL for aspiring IT professionals. So if you work in IT, whatever your role, ITIL can give you the edge. Okay, so boost employability. We talked about differentiating yourself from others, being able to show, your ITIL credentials, your background, maybe of use for future opportunities in your own organization, or maybe opportunities with other organizations. Okay, so that differentiation is really important. The solid foundation, build and expand on the IT basics to an advanced level. So yeah, let's start with foundation, but we can build our understanding of ITIL and how it applies to our IT organization and the different roles that you may undertake over time. Opens that career pathway. Yeah. For many people, often they start their first role in IT on the service desk. So understanding the service desk in a bigger picture sort of context, which ITIL will enable you to do, means that you understand where you fit, what the value of the service desk is, and of course its reliance and dependency on other functions within the IT organization. So again, helps to open your eyes to other parts of IT that you may aspire to move to, having got hopefully your foot in the door working in the service desk. Then ITIL can expand your understanding of where you fit and how you might be able to move forward into other opportunities. We've said recognised globally, so maybe you don't get on the shortlist unless you've got ITIL qualifications for a particular role. And this aligning skills with, the business needs. So starting to think beyond technology. I often think to myself today, is IT actually the business, or is the business actually IT? Well, it doesn't really matter, but the one thing that's clear is we understand how IT drives the success of the business. Yeah. And so we now need to start looking at what we do, not just through that technology lens, but also in terms of how the technology we support, we're involved in, actually contributes and supports what's important for the business and their customers to be successful. Okay, and that's a really important sort of, I think, point for many organizations recruiting nowadays, that people understand the contribution of IT to the business and how we can make the business more successful. ITIL certainly helps with that. How does it help career growth maybe for new sort of IT professionals? Probably similar things, really. We've talked about, helping better understand the wider scope of IT and what opportunities in time you can aspire to. So in terms of career progression, you perhaps start to have an insight into some things you might want to, explore in the future. ITIL sort of sensitizes you to those, and they become opportunities you might want to consider. Better understand how to manage services, and of course where you currently fit. Gives you that reference point for what does good look like. Yeah. When you move role, add value. You're bringing some experience, some ITIL knowledge and awareness that was applicable in where you used to work. Bring that with you when you move to something new. Yeah, understand the new role, but don't forget the good stuff you've learned, the best practice you followed when you were in your previous role, and add value that way. And of course, certification adds credibility. So again, demonstrates, that you take your own personal development seriously. Yeah. Yes, the organization can help you, but also, sometimes you need to own and drive that yourself. Okay. So ITIL is there to help you with that. If you're more in a management, business management, leadership perspective, again, this common theme of aligns IT with business goals. So focus on IT, how IT supports key business sort of outcomes and results. Yeah, how IT makes that difference. Ensure that your IT services are affordable, yeah, and deliver good value for money. Yeah, no point having great services that nobody can afford. Yeah, so they have to be affordable. That focus on, efficiency, effectiveness. Yeah, can we make things faster, better, cheaper? Yeah, using measurements and measuring the right things the right way to identify changes and improvements that make a tangible difference. Yeah, we're not just improving for improving's sake. We're improving because we know if we do this, yeah, it will make a tangible difference to the business. It will add value that they will recognize. Again, this importance of collaboration, this time IT to business. Yeah, so, you want the business to view IT as a partner. You understand us, you understand what's important to us. Yeah, so important to foster that level of collaboration. How can we work better together as IT in the business, yeah, to support the right outcomes for the business and make sure IT is delivering the right value to support what's important for the business to be successful. And of course, risk and compliance. So, trust that that IT is doing the right things, the right way, consistently. Yeah. And if not, it's being managed professionally to make sure we mitigate risk and ultimately at some point bring it back into compliance. Yeah, really important for a lot of regulated organizations that we have a good handle on risk and risk management. Again, ITIL embraces that. And of course, ultimately, this thing around consistency. We deliver what we deliver, but we deliver it consistently. Yeah, there's no point having a good day followed by a bad day. Yeah, the business are solely reliant and dependent on high quality services that you deliver. Yeah, they need to deliver them consistently, yeah, to their customers, yeah, for that positive customer experience. Okay, so real focus on making sure we're doing that and looking at things like technical refresh and maintaining our software and hardware, keeping it up to date, keeping it supported. So ITIL benefits for staff perhaps moving from a technical role into maybe service management roles or a leadership role. Again, how can ITIL support you with that? So again, we've talked about this shift of mindset from technology to sort of service. Really important. Builds that leadership perspective. So focus on value, understand the value is what it's about, and how services can add enhanced value from cradle to grave. So always looking at what is the value, can we add more value, are there better ways of doing things to deliver enhanced value to the business and their customers. Improved communication, when we talked about the importance of collaboration and the shared ITIL language, but working together, across IT in the business, across IT and suppliers and vendors, working together. If you work together, you're more likely to deliver a better solution with better buy-in and much better, hopefully consistent results. Okay, so move away from that silo sort of way of working to actually embrace the fact, let's understand who's going to be involved, let's work together, let's share what we're planning to do. Providing tools for managing change. So not just implementing change from an IT technical perspective, but what's the impact on people? Yeah, does it affect people? Does it affect teams? Yeah, how can we prepare people for change if it's quite a significant change to the way they currently work? So it gives you the tools to look at that aspect of change, not just the technical implementation of change, but how it impacts people. Yeah. And again, strengthens performance and accountability through good measurement, good metrics, measuring the right things the right way, and taking action and looking for those opportunities to drive improvements that we know will make a difference. And of course, prepares you for those future management roles, because starts you to think more holistically, thinking more than just what you do or your team does to that bigger picture of how you contribute and how IT in the broadest sense can make a big difference. Okay, so really important you start thinking that way, for those opportunities that come up maybe for service management roles or leadership roles in the future. We mentioned a big change in ITIL4 was this embrace of other ways of working, usually prevalent across most organizations. Most IT organizations don't just do ITIL. If you work in application development, you're doing Agile, you're doing DevOps, you might be involved in sort of projects and programs doing, digital transformation. So without laboring this screen particularly, this reinforces that, now ITIL4, its scope is organization wide. So actually service teams, technology teams can benefit from embracing some of these different principles, the Agile, DevOps sort of ways of working in what they do. And conversely, people who perhaps were somewhat sort of agnostic to ITIL because it didn't really apply to them is now organization wide, and actually you can add more value with your Agile DevOps background, because you understand how these things can make a difference, and maybe now you can add value to the wider organization by seeing ITIL4 now as something that leverages all these different great ways of working across IT into one sort of established reference point and best practice. So it makes it easier for people who perhaps traditionally didn't see themselves as being ITIL people into ITIL ways of working. And for senior leaders, recognizing successful business needs an IT provider that understands the business and customers and how it can deliver greater value to support the business be successful and grow, whether it's market share or revenues or both, how IT can do that. So this real importance of making sure IT is in line with what the business need to do, what direction they're taking, so that IT strategy underpins that business strategy, that we're working together to support that sort of common focus on the business success and the business objectives. Ensure that the business see IT as a partner. So, not the guys down the corridor. We only see when things go wrong. They see IT as in their corner. You understand us. You care about us. You come to us with ideas and opportunities to do things in a different way. We can come and knock on your door when we might have a challenge or an opportunity. How can IT help us? That's a sort of collaborative partnership approach that ITIL engenders and fosters in terms of its ways of working. Again, risk and compliance at high level, making sure we do the right things the right way consistently, and we professionally manage any deviations from that and get things back into compliance as quickly as possible. That we make decisions based on good data. So we don't waste time and effort doing things that don't make a tangible difference. It might look good on paper, but has it made a difference? Has it added any value? Make sure we do the right things for our customers, based on the data that supports, the right things to do with those tangible benefits delivered. Okay. And of course, innovation, always looking to improve. Faster, better, cheaper, never getting complacent. Really important as a culture. Leaders establish the workplace environment where continually improvement is seen as this is the way we do things around here. Encourage people, give them that empowerment to make a difference by looking at what they do and challenging themselves. Could we do this in a better way? And going on and doing that. Okay. And again, this strong message of business IT integration, working together, again, creating the environment as leaders that this stuff actually takes place. It's supported, it happens, and we get benefit from doing it. So we understand the business understands us. How can we work maybe closely together to maybe, deliver some, benefits, mutually beneficial improvements, that everyone sees, a benefit from being a part of. Again, very much part of that leadership role to create that environment. And again, ITIL provides guidance and direction to help people with that approach if they get that opportunity. Okay, nearly finished now on this side. So again, I'm not going to labor this slide. Again, I think just reflect on, those different roles. That just re-emphasizes how ITIL4 now is relevant, applicable to anyone in any role across any IT organization. So ITIL now, has guidance, support and help, whichever role you currently do or where you aspire to be in the future. So closing summary, does ITIL matter? And if so, why does it matter to all of us? Well, we've said ITIL4, it brings people together. It connects the people, the process, the technology. Those three sort of, if you like, domains create capabilities for an organization. So, helps us understand what we do today, but also how we can position for the future. ITIL4 helps improve our organizational capabilities, as we've said, helps us work better, work smarter, work together, key theme. Better solutions, better buy-in, better results and better outcomes if we do that. And provides that reference point for what does good look like. So whatever role we undertake, whatever we do, what does ITIL say? Is there a better way of doing things? It gives us that reference point for what good looks like. Okay, so over to you, Jason. Have you had any questions come through so far?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ian. That was a very comprehensive presentation. Of course, we've gotten quite a bit of questions coming through live in this webinar. One question asks, how does the knowledge of ITIL give advantage to the person that has no idea about ITIL? I think this one you can answer, Mr. I. Yes.
Yeah. Well, if I know nothing, if I start to, not just look at ITIL as just a set of training courses. I mean, of course, you need to learn how to walk before you can run. But, training courses give you obviously insight and an understanding of how ITIL can be applicable to what you do and how maybe you and your team do what they do. Of course, the real benefit from taking ITIL training courses is not just passing the exam, but also then looking at how might we be able to apply this back in the work environment. Okay, so when we look at sort of what we do, sometimes you don't need permission, to do things. You are responsible for your particular role, the work that you and your team does. So what does ITIL show us that maybe we can do things in a different, better way? So think of the training as obviously lifting the lid in terms of, I don't know anything about ITIL. The training course will help open your mind to what ITIL can offer you. But take that into the workplace to then look at opportunities to say, how can we apply this and make a difference? Again, that's a real key sort of message with any training, really, is do the training, but then take it into the workplace, and ask, how can we apply some of this, within team meetings or whatever, have discussions around, what does ITIL say? This is what ITIL would suggest. We don't do it that way, or we have these issues. What does ITIL say? Well, ITIL says we should be doing this. Okay, so hopefully that's a simple answer to quite a deep question, actually, but hopefully that's giving you some of my thoughts on that.
Thank you very much for the answer, Mr. Ian. There's another one. There's two questions. I'll put them together because they seem to be relating to each other. The first one asks, are there any opportunities to work within ITIL? And it also, the same participant goes on to ask, how exhaustive is the subject and is it the best tech to use at the moment?
Okay. Right. So, how can you get involved in ITIL? Well, most organizations, most IT organizations, I'm pretty certain, are working in an ITIL way, even if they don't maybe consciously recognize it, because a lot of the tools that they use actually embrace the ITIL sort of principles and protocols. So some people say, oh, well, we don't do ITIL, but they're doing incident management the way ITIL says, or they're doing change management the way ITIL says, because the tool sets they use sort of, enforce those ITIL disciplines, those protocols. So, whether you're a vendor, you're a supplier, any IT organization that has got any interest in IT, they'll be doing ITIL, more likely consciously, but sometimes unconsciously. And sorry, Jason, remind me, the second part of the question was?
Yes, of course. The second part of the question goes as, how exhaustive is the subject and is it the best tech to use at the moment? Best technology or best methodology to use at the moment?
Okay, well, again, there are lots and lots of different methodologies, we could call them methodologies, guidance, best practice frameworks out there. Some have a particular sort of bias towards a particular area. So DevOps is more development, Agile typically as being sort of application development. ITIL is probably now, with ITIL4, the one that applies across the whole IT organization. Okay, so in terms of a best practice that actually is applicable and relevant to anybody in an IT organization doing whatever they do, then ITIL is the only current best practice out there that has that broad scope. Okay, so that's an indication that, ITIL is quite exhaustive in that context. It's been around now for 35, 36 years. Okay, so it continues to evolve. Okay, I don't know when ITIL5 is coming along, but I know there's a lot of work going on in the background to bring ITIL4, again, up to date, because best practice is only best practice probably from the moment it's launched, because then people start to do things, come up with new ideas, new ways of working. So ITIL evolves. Okay, so again, in terms of exhaustive, 36 years, and ITIL5 is coming along, if not next year, probably the year after. So if you're looking at, is this a good thing to, if this was a bet, am I betting on the right horse? I don't think you'd be too disappointed in terms of outcomes if you were to commit to ITIL. Okay, Jason?
Thank you very much for the comprehensive answer. I've got a question that I can answer myself. This one comes from a pre-registration inquiry. The question goes as, what's included in your course that we won't get from just reading idle books or free online resources? For that question, I'd be able to answer as follows, as you, first of all, get a guidance from our expert speaker here today, someone who's very involved in the field. And most of all, you get that tutoring in combination with an interactive gamified learning experience. One that isn't just about giving you raw textual content, but something that gets you involved and interactive with the core concepts that you're going to learn. On top of that, you obviously get simulated practice exams. You get to prepare to face the real ones. And overall, you get live instructor support with 12 months of course access, flexible, and however you want to take it on, you can work with it within that 12-month access window. You get access to a comprehensive library to bolster your references and information that you need to use during coursework. More of all, this course is not just about giving you a theoretical understanding, but making it so that you tie that theoretical understanding with real life case examples so that you can apply your knowledge from the day that you participate.
Okay,
And
if I could
let's move on
say,
to, yeah, of course,
I was
yes,
just
yes,
say,
yes,
yeah, if I could
yes.
just add to that, and I might as well fly a flag because nobody flies it for you. So, you know, quite proud and privileged to work with Aspirex in terms of their sort of ITIL sort of plans and programs for the future. One of the things that I think is important is training organisations, you know, do utilise trainers that are not just sort of people who've read the books and have got the theory, you know, have actually been out there and done it. So in this context, you know, if you were to do training, which I cover, I've actually written ITIL. Yeah. So I've written it, I've reviewed it, I've QA'd it, but more importantly, I've implemented it and I've used it. Okay. So bringing ITIL alive, you know, from a real world is a really good point, and nice to see that actually, you know, we can do that as part of the future program for ITIL training that Jason will share later. So sorry for taking a bit of your answer there, but that was just an important point to bring out.
Thank you for the contribution to my answer. You really bolstered it. And uh, from now on, I'll give you a live webinar question. This is a bit of a compound question. The attendee asks, could you explain why an organization, and they give you an example, a mobile app development based organization should choose ITIL if it is already using Agile practices?
Okay, so again, looking at the bigger picture, so clearly in terms of developing, delivering, you know, getting maybe code out there into your sort of you know, user population to exploit new features or whatever, you're doing that. Of course, ITIL sort of stands back and looks at the broader perspective. It looks at so, you know, what's the value of what you deliver? What's the value? You know, what do your actual users, what do they value? So, you know, quite a lot of the times IT delivers what we think users would like, but actually what's it like from their perspective? So again, one of the themes in ITIL is to take what it calls an outside-in perspective, look at what you do through the eyes of your customer or user to give you that different perspective. And of course, you know, when things go wrong, you know, it's not just about how quickly we fix them, but do we fix them permanently, or are we living with workarounds? And are there patterns? Are there trends in terms of, you know, regular things that maybe, you know, we're not always picking up, they're not always reported, but again, what's the data out there that we can sort of look at and look for patterns and trends? So I guess it's giving you that broader holistic perspective of what you do. Clearly you're doing it, you're delivering updates, you're delivering an app updates, and you're responding to, you know, new requests for new functionality. Yeah, but it stands back a little bit and says, okay, so who are your users? Why do they use it? What's important to them? Yeah. And are there things we can do differently to improve maybe the quality, reliability, you know, availability of your solution, and that sort of cost sort of optimization focus. So no point delivering great apps that cost a lot, or, you know, delivering apps that competitors are doing different things. So in the broadest sense of ITIL, looking at that strategic lens of what you do, then I think it can bring a different set of dynamics to just simply, you know, delivering an app and keeping it updated and maintained.
Thank you very
Okay.
much for the answer, Mr. Ian. Yes. We've got one more question that seems rather important, and it goes as I have done my computer science and engineering in India, but never done any IT job. So how can I take this course and progress in it to get a job in the IT sector in UK?
Okay, right. Okay, well, that's quite a big question, you know. So again, I'm not sure what the current sort of rules are for people getting jobs in the UK, but I would imagine one of them is you have a potential job, you know, offer. So if you come into the country, you've got a job offer, and if it's in IT, well, again, you know, yeah, you know, there's lots of opportunities, lots of challenges in getting in work. But as I said before, you know, ITIL is that universally, globally recognized qualification. So, and I'm not trying to in any way downplay any academic qualifications that you've got, but ITIL is seen as being very generic in terms of it applies to any IT role in any industry. You know, covers a wide range of different roles that you may be interested in. So it's a bit more grounded, I think, and employers will be looking for some of that more grounded understanding of IT, rather than maybe, you know, those, you know, well-earned and hard-earned sort of academic qualifications. So yeah, I think it's an interesting question, but my initial retort would be, as ITIL is well understood and recognised across the globe, people looking to recruit people in to IT roles, then ITIL has probably got more currency than maybe academic qualifications. That would be my sort of opinion, but that's not to you know, sort of you know, underplay your achievements to get that academic qualification. But in the real world, ITIL's probably got more currency, would be my view.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive answer. I know that was a bit out of the scope for this webinar, but you definitely took a great gander at it. Most of these questions tend to be about employment. We have another one. The question goes as, I'm currently working in a help desk support role. Which ITIL certification should I do to find an ITSM job? Rather simple one.
Yeah, well, the first thing would be, well, everything starts with foundation. And, you know, the good thing about foundation is it gives you that broad sort of canvas of what ITIL4 covers. Okay. But actually, there's quite a lot in ITIL4 around the importance of the service desk. Yeah, the value the desk can bring to an organization, the importance of a really sort of switched on, you know, empathetic, customer focused part of the IT organization. In your current role, there may well be other parts of IT that you see, yeah, in your role. So when incidents happen, the different support teams, the support model that you go through to get maybe support for incidents that the desk itself can't resolve. So I would say foundation, and then I would look at the practice sort of courses. Remember those three designations? So practitioner, yeah. So look at maybe some of the practices that are close to the service desk, things like incident management, problem management, monitoring an event, service request, etc. Because those are things that the desk execute within, but don't own them in completeness. And so if you understand, for example, how incidents are managed, yeah, across the organization, and you have a good insight from that from a desk perspective, then ITIL gives you that additional lens. Yeah, so my recommendation would be, given where you currently are, yeah, looking ahead, is to better understand, you know, sort of the next step down or the next ladder from where the desk is. And some of that would be in that support model. And so the practitioner modules would probably be the right area to focus on, I would suggest.
Thank you for the answer, Mr. Ian. Also, these questions tend to run along similar lines. We've got a final one from the audience. Goes in the same lines, asking, "I'm new to ITIL, little knowledge of it. If I complete the foundation, will I be able to find work in the ITSM field?" I believe you've already answered it to an extent in the previous question as well, but if you've got anything to add to this one.
No, as I said before, some of this stuff is about differentiation. So in the competitive world, the tough marketplace that from time to time we find ourselves in, trying to find new roles, secure different or better employment. Better to have it than not have it. Yeah, because that differentiation is quite important. So yeah, having that, I think one of the slides says you sort of speaking the language that the hirers want to hear. So if you're having an interview, some of these terms and tags, you understand them. Yeah, you've got a good understanding of what they are. Even if you may not had any direct experience, you can at least understand, and have some conversation about them and how that might be something you could add some value to given your current experience. So yeah, better to have than not. Differentiation is always important. Yeah, as I said in the presentation, do you even get on the shortlist if you haven't got an appropriate ITIL qualification? So again, I hope that helps with that answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ian. There's one last question that we have from pre-registration. I'll tackle this one. It goes on the lines of, how does Aspirex ITIL differ from other providers, and what makes this technique approach unique? Well, as I've said or have highlighted before, we have industry experts such as Mr. Ian, who's a chartered IT professional with 40 plus years. You can get a dual experience that could switch between an e-learning experience or a live virtual classroom, as you choose. And as said before, again, the experience is not just about theory, it's about interactivity. You get real life cases, and you get to interact with a rich media environment. On top of that, the People Cert accreditation is given as a accredited training organization for Aspirex. You get a comprehensive support package, 12-month course access with flexibility based on your requirements, a proven track record, and you get a UK-based expertise on top of it. And most importantly, I'd like to highlight it again. Mr. Ian is an expert in the field. He doesn't just teach ITIL. He's an author. He's worked in the field. He's created credible, tangible outcomes to teams in terms of performance and efficiency. So getting that perspective on top of having interactive experiences is what really puts this course above the rest. And with that one, I'll hand it back to Mr. Ian for one last slide.
Okay, yeah. So so what's the action plan? So yeah, just a time to reflect on again your perspective. You've signed into this session, so there's obviously an interest. So hopefully ITIL4 is giving you an insight in terms of its applicability and its relevance maybe to you. So where do you see yourself in the future? Is it just getting your foot through the door in terms of an IT role, or is it looking at sort of progressing across your current organization or other organizations? And what would be the sort of gaps in your knowledge and understanding? So how can ITIL4 maybe help address that? If you're going to do the ITIL journey, start with planning certification with foundation. You've got to do that. You can't do anything else until you've got foundation. And as it says there, be engaged with the ITIL framework and work towards your next certification, whatever that may be. Okay, so food for thought and reflection. So yeah, Jason, are you going to take over from now with your slides?
Yes, of course, I'll take over with my slides. Give you one moment. All right.
Yep, got that.
Now to finalize the webinar today, I've got some final slides to show you. One of these is, as we've had lasted until the end of it, you get to have some additional information about the courses and the webinars that we might have in future. For example, we have our course promotions. If you use webinar 5 as a coupon code, you get a 5% discount, which is valid until midnight tomorrow, which is the 5th September of 2025. Also got webinar 10 as a coupon code, which gives you a 10% discount up until the 31st of September. And on the upcoming events, we don't quite have any webinars on the list at the moment, but I would recommend that you keep in touch with the social media and YouTube channels and all the streams that we provide. But I do have to mention we have ITIL4 virtual classroom sessions happening within the months of October, November, and December. These are 3-day sessions, full days, and you get a comprehensive understanding of the field, which is again conducted by our expert speaker, Mr. Ian MacDonald. You can get a hands-on experience of what it feels like. And over that, I'd like to mention that if you go to the website relating to the course, you can get a 7-day trial, which covers about 25% of the course, and you can try this experience for free with no investment. You do not have to put your credit card in. You can try it. You can make sure that it suits your requirements, and then if you feel like it is the best pathway for you to move onwards into your entryway into ITIL, you can make sure that you can continue the journey with Aspirex and with our expert, very informed expert speaker, Mr. Ian MacDonald. And I believe that is all we have got in store for today. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. Thank you, Mr. Ian, for giving us a very informative and supportive session and a Q&A session. And with that, I bid you all farewell. Thank you very much for joining the webinar. I hope that you will follow up on our social media, and if you need any more information, the course representatives will be contacting you based on your requests that you've made during the webinar. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you.